Let's check it out. I also have to play the other part of the demo. Yeah, that'll be coming up today too. Let's get it.
Standing on the edge of Midgard's expressway at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the seemingly infinite possibilities of what could come next left me overwhelmed with a yearning I hadn't really felt from a game before. So in several ways, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my wildest imagination made manifest. Its impeccable combat is made fresh again with clever new mechanics and party members, and splitting the original's overworld into gorgeous open regions full of enjoyable side content enriches places I thought I knew so well. That lets this reimagining once again stand as both a stunning reconstruction of a game I've cherished since 1997, as well as an interesting new interpretation of it. However, Rebirth's continuing ambition to create a new timeline for Final Fantasy VII can bounce between awe-inspiring and overly convoluted. That's left me conflicted about parts of the execution of that new direction. But after spending more than 80 hours to finish the main story and a decent chunk of side content, there's no denying that Rebirth is an amazing journey despite that, and one I'll remember fondly as I eagerly anticipate the third act of this rebuild of Final Fantasy VII.
Very good. Fill your hollow heart with rage.
As soon as I stepped foot onto the grasslands, the first of 6 regions that make up Rebirth, I was stunned by its impressive scale. The cutscene introducing the reformed overworld shows Aerith taking in the beauty of a natural world she'd never seen before, only to have Red 13 remind us that this world is still dying from the inside.
But in reality, it's barely hanging on.
Reinforcing the ongoing theme of environmental preservation, and that this is a planet worth fighting for. There's something powerful in exploring each corner of these regions, just to see how they've clung onto life in spite of the destructive effect of Mako energy, and there are stories to be told in the breathtaking views alone.
And there it was, the first step on our new journey.
Of course, a game this massive also comes with a somewhat intimidating world map that has embraced many modern open world design conventions. That includes activating towers to mark tasks on your map, but Rebirth manages to transcend that well-worn trope. As I went from region to region, connecting with people and helping with their struggles, I often found compelling little side stories that uplift its human element. The more I peeled back the layers of all the activities that fill these zones, the more engrossed I got in clearing every icon I could.
Sephiroth was in Midgard. We fought him. Whatever happened, he's alive.
But why come back now?
Limit breaks.
Nearly every task rewards you with XP for your party level to advance an additional progression system called folios, which unlocks perks and abilities for each character. The biggest additions are synergy abilities, powerful partner attacks that lay on heavy damage and can grant bonuses like extending stagger windows, filling the limit break bar, or temporarily negating all MP costs. You'll also access synergy skills that can be used on the fly to make combat more flexible. A favorite of mine was having Barret launch Tifa into the air to get her within melee range of flying enemies. Synergies complement an already intricate combat system by filling gaps in the action, making the combat loop more complete, and having party members work in tandem is always charming to see.
Okay, ladies.
The returning pressure and stagger systems once again push you towards understanding combat on a deeper level, since stronger enemies won't go down through simple button mashing. Having the tactical foresight to orchestrate an offensive push that exploits an enemy's specific vulnerabilities and the skill necessary to execute it all is so rewarding, and the pressure of aggressive, unforgiving opponents really makes you work for those satisfying moments.
Thanks so much for everything.
While the returning cast all fight just as they did in Remake, new enemies and mechanics encourage you to bring out more in your party members. Yuffie can be an absolute menace now, with a party around her and a full game to build out her skill set, standing out as the most dynamic character of the bunch. The finally playable Red 13 can turn defense into offense with his vengeance stance and fast combos, and destructive abilities like Stardust Ray can make short work of enemies. Constantly switching between characters and setting them up to play their parts offers both a constant variety in the moment-to-moment action and the satisfaction of playing the field general. However, at times there was a little dissonance between how your party functions and what the enemy is capable of doing. Certain foes zip around the battlefield at such high speeds that even the targeting system has trouble keeping up, and getting constantly knocked back or caught in multi-hit combos is an occasional annoyance. Thankfully, these brief moments of frustration never overshadow the soaring heights Rebirth's combat reaches. With enough practice, preparation, and wits, even the hardest battles are a thrill to conquer. Unironically, some of the best battles are actually in the new card game, Queen's Blood. It's an outstanding addition that had me seeking hours into it. Not only is it smartly designed, there's an entire side story that builds up around it as you progress, exploring the origins of Queen's Blood itself and going in some wild and unpredictable directions you won't want to miss. While the larger story Rebirth tells is a heart-wrenching and compelling one, it does take a while for it to initially come into focus. After opening with the hard-hitting flashback of the tragedy at Nibelheim, Cloud and Tifa's hometown, you'll spend a lot of time getting acquainted with the flow of the open regions and their many diversions, in between a handful of critical plot points. By front-loading a lot of those diversions and minigames, it can lose the thread of what Cloud and the gang were even supposed to be doing in the first place. Don't get me wrong, many of these activities are a joy in their own right, and a few of them make for memorable moments of levity, but a little restraint could have helped keep the focus on the parts I cared about most. For as cool as the Junon marching minigame and the Queen's Blood matches are, there's also the occasional slow-paced crate-moving puzzle or a stealth section to unlock a region's chocobo to bog down the momentum. That said, these are ultimately small blemishes on what is largely a fantastic revision of Final Fantasy VII. And if anything, the more robust minigames capture just how goofy the PS1 classic always was, and leading into that absurdism works wonders for staying true to its identity. Rebirth manages to strike a delicate tonal balance as well, which is impressive for a story full of darkness and sorrow. The planet's very existence is at risk, with Shinra's destructive nature and Sephiroth's calamitous ambitions looming.
The smoke rising from the rubble is reminiscent of a funeral pyre.
Cloud himself is a broken man, an unreliable narrator, and a complicated protagonist, and in the highest fidelity of modern tech, his slight but telling mannerisms speak as loud as anything he said in the original script. Nearly every party member has their moment to shine in this arc of Final Fantasy VII, and through impeccable cinematic stylings and top-tier voice performances, the cast teetering between hope and despair is on full display.
Sorry we're late!
For the love of... Where the hell have you two been?
On a date.
Barrett's backstory was already unforgettable, but there's a newfound authenticity to the struggles he faces and painful resolutions that await him. Those modern qualities, along with the reimagined
Let them do that to you, Barrett.
To Red 13, and round
Better
out
do
as a more
something.
complete character too. Aerith becomes an emotional leader, and the relationship between her and Tifa grows stronger and more believable as they confide in each other and bear the brunt of Cloud's baggage.
So, did something happen between you and Tifa?
Rebirth is often cheesy in its writing and revels in its melodrama, but that's part of its charm. Inside the cloying displays of friendship and the theatrical pleas to protect the planet are undeniably genuine messages about how we carry ourselves in our own lives. That tone lets this particular brand of storytelling strike a chord as effectively as it does, elevating Rebirth above many of its contemporaries.
We're taking off!
Rebuilding Final Fantasy VII's story for a new generation has also come along with the theme of defying your supposed fate.
Glad
which
you
was
didn't
made
say
explicit
modern
toward the end of
audiences.
Remake with the convergence of alternate timelines affecting each other. But while this new take on the classic story has the potential to be equally as powerful, it pains me to say that Rebirth fumbles the execution. Avoiding any spoilers, the events of its conclusion and the ensuing aftermath are portrayed in a way that is both convoluted and undefined, robbing it of its impact. It's a case of trying to do too much without the connective tissue to bring it all together. Cryptic messages and nuanced meanings can be well and good, but sometimes stories have to speak plainly about what is actually happening, and Rebirth does not when it needs to most. But even with the messy delivery of its conclusion, some of the new scenes surrounding that finale do offer sobering messages about grief, letting go, and the acceptance of life's eventual end. These quiet moments encourage a different kind of reflection that the original wasn't able to touch on. How we make sense of our lives and our place in a world full of tragedy is a complicated and messy endeavor that seems full of contradictions, and Rebirth makes that fittingly clear. So even though the new path these remakes are trying to forge is both fascinating and flawed, Final Fantasy VII's story once again manages to hold a pointed mirror up to our own world 27 years later.
Life's dream.
You
It is
know,
the
her
very essence of
in the
our
sword
star.
up.
The blood coursing through its planetary veins.
Final Fantasy VII
Probably gonna get
progressively builds off of what remakes set in motion.
8,
as both a
9,
best-in-class
or
action
masterpiece.
RPG full of exciting
He's already
challenges
talked about
and
flaws,
as
so it's
an
not
awe-inspiring
masterpiece. It's 8 or
recreation
9.
Of a world that has meant so much to so many for so long. After 82 hours to finish the main story and complete a decent chunk of side quests and optional activities, there's still so much to be done, making this pivotal section of the original feel absolutely massive. Minigames, side quests, and other enticing diversions fill the spaces of its vast and sprawling regions, painting a new and more vivid picture of these familiar locations. But more than just being filled with things to do, Rebirth is often a powerful representation of Final Fantasy VII's most memorable qualities. It does fumble the execution of its ending, getting caught up in the mess of its multiple twisting timelines, but new moments and the overarching journey manage to evoke a deeper sense of reflection in spite of that. So for as flawed as parts of how this classic has been reimagined might be, Rebirth still stands out
What'd I
as
tell
something
you?
both thrilling
What'd I
and
tell you?
unexpectedly impactful.
Still alive.
Miraculously, yeah.
For more on the wave of great RPGs to hit early 2024, be sure to check out our review of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and my review of Persona 3 Reload. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
I will reclaim our world.
Well, I gotta watch their video on how long it's gonna take to beat it. I'm very interested in that. Tell you the truth, man, I had a lot of fun playing the other one. I didn't really exactly like a lot of the changes that they made, but I would say it's interesting. So, for the most part, I'm happy as a fan. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you missed my gameplay, go check that out. Post comments down below. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed my reaction, hit the like button, subscribe, and share.